Our public governance analyst, Professor Zwelinzima Mandevu, says the public has every right to hold the president morally liable regarding the Phala Phala farm scandal. Mandevu says President Cyril Ramaphosa still has to answer whether his conduct in this matter is ethically and morally acceptable. Let's take a listen.
Bigger issue that must be discussed by South African and public representatives is that when do we draw the line for people who are holding public office as high as the president is holding, in terms of what can you be involved in, what you can not be involved in, and whether morality plays a bigger role. The assumption from a public point of view might be that although the president has done nothing wrong in terms of the law, but was he supposed to be seen to be doing that? Or things should be happening in that way in his farm or any property or business associated with a person of a president's stature.
All right, let's continue the discussion now, and we speak to Advocate Paul Hoffman, Executive Director at Accountability Now. Advocate Hoffman, thank you very much for your time. And I want to pick up from what Professor Mandevu had to say there, but add this to this particular picture, and that is that the public protector, or acting public protector, Kollega Kalega, was on this show last year in October, and she made it clear that she is working hard to ensure that reports that are released under her watch are going to be able to withstand legal scrutiny. As things stand, do you think that the preliminary report that has been leaked thus far can withstand that legal scrutiny?
Good morning to your listeners, and thanks for the opportunity. Your viewers, I should say. Been too busy on radio this morning. The question raised by the learned professor, and indeed the commendable attitude of the acting public protector, can be answered by drilling down into the conduct of cabinet that is required by the Constitution. I think that has been overlooked in the preliminary report, and it needs to be drawn to the attention of the acting public protector and those concerned about morality in government, because the Constitution itself says that the President and his cabinet cannot act in any way that is inconsistent with their office. And clearly, when you become the president of a country, you ought to make it your full-time job, and you ought to devote your entire attention to it.
Yeah.
So whether retaining US dollars beyond the 30-day period allowed by the Reserve Bank, stitching them into a couch, can be said to be consistent with the oath of office and the obligations of the president, is something that needs to be looked into in this matter. It's not enough to just look at the nuts and bolts of the Executive Members Ethics Act. The Constitution itself says, don't behave inconsistently, don't expose yourself to the risk of a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
The risk, not an actual conflict. And I think that the President did do that by retaining his membership in the closed corporation that was trading in livestock and wild buffalo, after he was appointed as deputy president in the Zuma administration. He should have put that into a blind trust, and he ought not to have had anything to do with it, even if it was just a money-making hobby. That sort of hobby ought not to be the business of the leader of the country.
Okay, so let me pick up on that, on exactly what you've just said, Advocate Hoffman. Did the president expose himself to a possible conflict of interest? Because, as you say, his words are, at certain instances, this is what I do as a hobby. So his proximity to private business interests versus his public duties.
If you have a hobby that puts you at risk of a conflict of interest, you must give the hobby up. That is what any court will suggest as a viable interpretation of the section of the Constitution that I've referred to. It's Section 96.2 for those viewers who are interested to know just what the Constitution expects of people in cabinet. His problem is that he is the sole member of the closed corporation that received the benefit of the undeclared dollars that were brought into South Africa by the Sudanese businessmen. He is the person responsible to put those dollars into rands within 30 days of receipt thereof. We know that they were stolen more than 30 days after Christmas Day on the of December 2019. They were in fact stolen in February of 2020. So he has a problem in that regard, and this is not drilling down to his other problem, which is that he has not caused the theft of the dollars to be reported to the Hawks. He simply told his personal security Presidential Protection Unit head about it, which is not compliance with the requirements of the law, and that law is on the statute book, and it has apparently been misread or ignored by the acting public protector, because it's very clear that the Hawks were not told of this theft. And as the victim of the theft, the member of the closed corporation, it's up to the president to see to it that the Hawks are informed. He just didn't do that.
All right. So, Advocate Hoffman, let's wrap it up very briefly because of time. I could have gone to other questions, but I need to ask this of you. This report, I mean, you've explained a number of things here that still has a lot of answers, or rather questions that need answers to. Do you expect this report to change substantially when it comes to the actual final report? And if it doesn't, what does that tell us about the person that's leading the office of the public protector, or at least the process?
Yes, I think we must be fair to the acting public protector. This is a preliminary report. It's been 9 months in preparation, which is excessively long for the narrow investigation that is required. But I hear from the Hawks that they've taken 145 witness statements in the matter, but I imagine that is cascading down into the theft in which the president, the burglary, the president features as a victim in that regard, and it is not something that need detain the acting public protector when she prepares the final report. What I would expect to see in the final report is word from the Reserve Bank as to whether any permission was given to hold the dollars for an extended period. That's not covered yet. I would expect the public protector to deal properly with the provisions of Section 96.2 of the Constitution, insofar as not behaving inconsistently with the law and not placing yourself at risk of a conflict of interest, which was discussed in the Nkandla case. So it's not as though it's an obscure part of the law. If those items are addressed squarely, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the president to claim that he has been given a clean bill of health in the final report of the...
Advocate Paul Hoffman, thank you very much for your inputs there. He is the Executive Director of Accountability Now. Well, still lots of questions that need answers here, but important to restate that this is a leaked preliminary report. Responses have still got to come from those people whom it has been handed to.